Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. You guys asked for it, so today we have it. We have the Green Broly BR Hand Destruction deck list that took first place at DBS Fest Asia. This was piloted by CS at their DBS Fest, but this is the deck that's been worked on by a whole group of great players over there. Wang Po took this deck to the top 4 of the World's Championship. So today we're going over their updated list, guys. Their event, as they told me, was a sideboard best of 1, but in top 4 they actually played best of 3. So there's that info for you guys. We'll go through the list. So if you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, many ways to do so, as always, down in the description. But today, if you want to buy any cards for this deck or any trading card game cards for that matter, use my link to TCG Player. Really does help out a lot. Anyways, let's get into this. So firstly, I think it's important to discuss the leader because one of the biggest format changes we had going into set 16 was Cell Surge now being banned. So yeah, I mean, what's hand control supposed to do in this format now? This may be the next best option. I mean, considering the fact that it made top 4 of Worlds, it's a serious contender in my book. And the leader being able to refuel your hand back to 6 is very interesting with cards that are specific to green that we'll see in the list. So we'll get into this here. First thing, 4 copies of Zarbon Cosmic Elite. I mean, yeah, in this deck, you want everything and anything that interacts with your drop area. Once again, cool thing is you pitch 1 to play this card, and then your leader just, like, gets that card back automatically. Like, you have to think about it this way when you're playing this leader. You're always going to be at 6 cards in hand, so it doesn't matter how many cards you combo, how many cards you play from your hand, that kind of thing. The only thing you do got to watch out for is your leader permanent only allows you to have so many battle cards in play, so that could be a little tricky, I could see. But again, like, the fact that this is essentially just 1 energy and not technically a discard cost from your hand, if you look at it that way, is really good. Then we have 2 copies of Cell's Earth Destroying Kamehameha. Of course, makes sense in a hand control deck. Then we have 3 copies of Rosie Blast Manipulator. When you're not up against an aggro deck, this format is actually quite slow. So having this deflect battle card that takes 2 cards from their hand and then has triple attack is really high value, especially because that triple attack late game is going to cost them more cards from hand. So it's not only pay 3, rip 2. When you start attacking with it and they start spending resources to stop it, it takes even more cards out of their hand. Then we have 4 copies of Dormant. Okay, so with Dormant, this is where, like, the synergy with the leader is kind of insane. So if you could loop Dormant, unfortunately we can't loop it anymore. I shouldn't say loop. If you can resolve Dormant every turn, you're going to get, like, the maximum amount of value from this leader because, again, your leader is going to refuel that hand back to 6 cards. So that's where the biggest thing comes from. Unfortunately, you know, Roshi's a banned card, which was probably a good preemptive ban if we're looking at things today because it could have been a little crazy in some of the more recent green decks. And this one would have been no exception, right? So imagine picking up Dormant with this deck every single turn where, again, Dormant is essentially costless. With this leader, cards that have discard costs, you can really think of them as costless. Although, again, it is going to be a little bit rough to be capped at 6 cards in hand if you don't have Dormant or some sort of other floodgate. 4 copies of Bardock Unison. So, yeah, I mean, this Unison with the +1 lets you rip more cards from your opponent's hand. It also punishes the combo step of your opponent. So if they're playing an rival-based deck, which we've seen many in this format, you've got all the different builds of Soul Striker, you've got Cooler, you've got Android 16. So this Unison here just punishes those types of combo decks while also just being a hand control tool. And then we have 2 copies of Paragus Sacrifice. So pretty interesting with this card. If you play it and then attack the leader, draw to 6, and then resolve the activate main, you'll actually go to 7 cards in hand, which is pretty cool. And actually, this combo is really nice with Zarbon because Zarbon does not have to be removed by your opponent's skill. So you can activate main on Zarbon, on Paragus, send your Zarbon to the drop, and then make your opponent pitch a card if they have you know, more than 5 cards in hand. That's pretty cool. Then we have 4 copies of Boo Unadulterated Malice. So this makes sense. You know, 4 copies of Dormant, 4 copies of Boo. You want to always just have a floodgate because, again, any discard cost in this deck is basically costless. Then we have 2 copies of Zarbon Frieza's Right Hand Man. So we haven't seen too many Frieza cards in this deck. Obviously, we have the Zarbons, but it also does search our Unison. So maybe there are some more targets we'll see later on. 4 copies of Frieza Charismatic Villain. Okay, I think it actually only searches 4 or less, though, so I guess it wouldn't technically be a target for that, but still obviously a broken card with, you know, 4 copies of a green Unison. 4 copies of Rebrand, obviously. Then we have 2 copies of Homicidal Clones. This makes sense, but again, you do got to watch out a little bit for your leader's restriction of only having so many battle cards in play. So I could see that whiffing a little bit, which makes sense to me as to why they would only play 2 copies, because I could see that being a little bit tough to set up, and even with Charismatic Villain as well. But again, you just got to manage it properly, and if you can do that, you know, your board presence is not the most important thing. So if you have to combo battle cards away, or use your leader effect to KO one of yours and KO one of theirs, you can obviously work around that in many different ways. 2 copies of Broly Unrealized Ambition. This allows you to get awakened if your opponent's not attacking you. Also synergizes with Paragus Sacrifice to get it off the board and then fully awaken you if you need to do that. 4 copies of Paragus Deadly Premonition. So yeah, I remember from the last deck profile, because it's actually not the first time I had them here on the channel, you're really just using this card for the untap ability. Again, synergizing with your leader ability, synergizing with Paragus Sacrifice. So that's basically what that's there for. Not many Broly targets in the deck, but last time they did let me know that it really is just for that untap ability. Then we have 4 copies of the Android 18 Super Combo. Hand control deck makes perfect sense. I could definitely see wanting to play a draw super combo with all the other hand control elements that we have in the deck. But again, I mean, making your opponent lose more cards is definitely not a bad thing by any means. 3 copies of Koitsukai in the main deck. I think this is definitely a new addition. I don't think they main deck Koitsukai last time, but this is actually a super good main deck tech, because again, you can just get it to the drop super easily. Doesn't matter if you have to combo it or pitch it, whatever. And this card, in my opinion, it's the best side deck card in the current meta, so I could definitely see an element of wanting to mainboard it. Although it is a little bit interesting because, you know, this was a sideboard best of 1 event, but I guess going into Top Cut, knowing that it's best of 3, you might want to have the card in the main deck if you think it's going to be really relevant in your game 1s in Top Cut. Then we have 1 copy of Champa Destroys. So I think it's pretty similar to Earth Destroying Kamehameha, except it has a different ability if it's used on your own turn. So I guess they wanted a little bit of flexibility with having the 1 copy of that versus just the 3 copies of Earth Destroying Kamehameha. And the final card in the main deck is SS4 Vermilion Sand. So this is interesting. CS actually explained this to me, where last format, or I guess during Worlds format, they were playing the Primal Carnage SCR, basically for the surprise factor, 1 energy, kill anything at any time, basically. But I guess, you know, that card sort of lost its surprise factor. And with SS4 Vermilion Sands, they actually explained to me that they're not expecting anyone to be playing green, right? So if they use this card against any deck, they're going to get a minimum of 2 warps off of it and 2 5k boosts. And then factor in your opponent playing a you know, dual color or tricolor deck, you get even more mileage out of the card. So to me, that makes a lot of sense. It's very similar to what Primal Carnage offered the deck in terms of like removal. But yeah, like not expecting anyone to play green, I think is a really good call, and getting extra mileage out of Vermilion Sands is pretty cool. And then we'll go over their side decks. So we have 1 copy of Focus Breakthrough, just stops things like Robotic Riposte, like Oceanus Negate, stuff like that. BMS, like we've been talking about, it has its matchups. King Piccolo sometimes, Yellow Trunks actually pretty good against, and then your other rogue random things like, I don't know, Agents of Destruction or any type of deck that can, you know, proc BMS. Also helps get Self-Awakened, which I can actually see being semi-relevant in certain matchups where you only have 2 copies of Broly Unrealized Ambition. Then we have 4 copies of Angel of Universe 10 Kusu. So what I'm assuming they would do with this card, and of course I'm sure one of them will comment down below letting us know more information, but what I'm assuming is they would bring in all 4 copies and then aim to charge 1. This way the rest of the game, the counterplay and the combo effect is live, because for both effects you essentially have to have a multicolor charged to you know, get this girl in play or to use her combo ability. So yeah, I'm assuming that was their plan. Bring all 4 into the main deck and then hopefully charge 1 on turn 1. And now the rest of the game, this card's live. I do definitely wonder what matchups they wanted this for. Of course, I'm going to definitely be on lookout for them commenting it down below. And this is a 50 card main deck, so bringing in 4 of this seems relatively reliable to see this on turn 1. Then we have the extra copy of Realm of the Gods Champa. So yeah, I guess they want it for like the max power effect, which makes perfect sense to me. That definitely makes sense if your opponent is playing like Sin Shenron or something along those lines. Although in green, you should have plenty of removal, I would think. But, I mean, having extra can't hurt. Then we have 3 copies of Majin Buu Unadulterated Destruction. So I'm assuming this is just for your super long game types of decks. So I would say probably blue matchups, probably certain yellow matchups. This card makes a lot of sense to bring in. Even like a random like red Bulma, or maybe even like a random Hatchiax. Anything that's going long, you can get a lot of mileage out of this card, wiping their entire board, wiping their unison, and taking 2 cards out of their hand. Seems good to me. And then 2 copies of Broly Rushing Forth. So this is a card you can actually bring out off of Unrealized Ambition. Although again, I am definitely curious what matchups they would want to bring this in specifically against. Maybe something they want to be a little bit more aggro against. That would be my guess. But anyways, guys, that's their deck list here for you. Check back for the pinned comment in just a little bit. I'm going to be posting the link to their deck list here so you guys can read all the cards, as well as the tournament report. So all the rounds basically and how that went. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Yo, Dragon Ballers, I want to say thank you guys for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you liked the video, definitely consider dropping a like. Really does help me out, and maybe consider watching the next video, which should be on the screen right here. Yeah.
Wait, do you think's good yet?
No, Chris, not yet.
All right, I'll see you next set.
All right.